It's not talent, not intelligence, not even confidence, but the number one personality trait most strongly linked to long-term success is something no one talks about, and science proves it beyond any reasonable doubt. And if you've ever felt behind in life, this one trait can change everything, even if you weren't born with it, because what I'm about to share with you will fundamentally shift how you see yourself and your potential forever. Before we go deep into this message, comment below which part of the world are you watching from. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the Mental Bite channel, and press the bell icon so you never miss a word of encouragement. This video is dedicated to Sophia from Berlin. Now listen carefully, because this isn't just another motivational speech. This is about understanding the raw mechanics of human achievement, and I need you to understand that right now. Somewhere in the world, there's a person with average intelligence, average background, average resources, who is consistently outperforming people who are smarter, more connected, and more naturally gifted than them. And the reason isn't luck, it isn't timing, it isn't even hard work in the traditional sense. It's something much more fundamental that researchers have been studying for decades. And what they've discovered will blow your mind, because it challenges everything we've been told about what makes people successful. The Big Five personality model, which is the gold standard in psychological research, breaks down human personality into 5 core dimensions that have been validated across cultures, across time, across every demographic you can imagine. And these 5 traits are openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And when researchers tracked thousands of people over decades, measuring their career success, life satisfaction, income levels, relationship quality, health outcomes, and overall life achievement, they found that one of these 5 traits consistently outperformed all others when it came to predicting who would actually achieve their goals and maintain success over the long term. And it wasn't the trait most people would expect. It wasn't openness, which is about creativity and curiosity. It wasn't extroversion, which is about being outgoing and social. It wasn't agreeableness, which is about being cooperative and kind. And it wasn't even low neuroticism, which is about emotional stability, though that one comes in as a close second. The trait that dominated all others in predicting success was conscientiousness. And I need you to understand what this really means, because conscientiousness isn't just about being organized or punctual. It's about something much deeper and more powerful than that. Conscientiousness is your ability to regulate your behavior in service of your long-term goals. It's your capacity to delay gratification when immediate pleasure conflicts with future benefit. It's your tendency to follow through on commitments, even when motivation fades. It's your willingness to do the boring, unglamorous work that success actually requires, and it's your ability to maintain discipline and structure in your life, even when everything around you is chaotic. And what the research shows is that this trait is more predictive of success than IQ, more predictive than social skills, more predictive than creativity, more predictive than any other single factor researchers have identified. And the reason is simple but profound. Success isn't about having brilliant moments. It's about consistently showing up and doing the work, day after day, week after week, year after year, especially when you don't feel like it. Think about it this way. Conscientiousness is like having an inner architect who doesn't just dream about beautiful buildings, but actually shows up every day with a hard hat and blueprints, ready to lay another brick, pour another foundation, frame another wall. And this inner architect doesn't care if it's raining, doesn't care if you're tired, doesn't care if you're not in the mood, because this architect understands that buildings aren't constructed through inspiration alone. They're built through consistent, methodical action over time. And the same principle applies to every significant achievement in human life, whether it's building a business, mastering a skill, maintaining relationships, or achieving any meaningful goal. The research is overwhelming on this point, And I want you to understand just how powerful this finding is, because when researchers followed Harvard students for decades, they found that conscientiousness was a better predictor of life satisfaction and achievement than the prestige of their degree. When they studied entrepreneurs, they found that conscientiousness was more important than intelligence in determining who would build successful businesses. When they looked at athletes, they found that conscientiousness was more predictive of long-term performance than natural talent. And when they examined people across all walks of life, they discovered that conscientious individuals live longer, make more money, have better relationships, experience less stress, and report higher levels of life satisfaction. And this isn't because they're luckier or more privileged. It's because they've developed the ability to consistently align their daily actions with their long-term values and goals. But here's what's really fascinating and what most people miss. The second most important trait for success is actually low neuroticism, and this is the hidden advantage that nobody talks about, because we're so focused on the flashy, obvious traits like charisma and intelligence. But low neuroticism is like having an internal shock absorber that allows you to navigate life's inevitable ups and downs without getting knocked off course. And when you combine high conscientiousness with low neuroticism, you get something incredibly powerful. A person who not only shows up consistently, but also stays calm and focused under pressure, bounces back quickly from setbacks, makes rational decisions even in emotional situations, and maintains their course even when others around them are panicking or giving up. Low neuroticism means you're not constantly hijacked by anxiety, you're not derailed by criticism, you're not paralyzed by fear of failure, you're not overwhelmed by the normal stresses of life, and this emotional stability allows your conscientiousness to actually function effectively, because you can't be disciplined and consistent if you're constantly in fight or flight mode, if you're always reacting to emotional triggers, if you're spending all your mental energy managing anxiety and stress. And this is why so many talented, intelligent people struggle to achieve their potential, because they have the raw ability, but they lack the emotional regulation to consistently apply that ability over time. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like you either have these traits or you don't. And if you don't, you're somehow doomed to underachieve. But that's completely wrong. And this is where the research gets really exciting, because personality traits aren't fixed. They're not set in stone. They're not determined by your genes or your childhood. They can be developed, strengthened, and transformed through deliberate practice and environmental changes. And the science on this is absolutely clear. People can become more conscientious. They can become more emotionally stable. They can literally rewire their brains to embody these success predicting traits. And the methods for doing this are practical, accessible, and proven to work. The key insight is that conscientiousness isn't about willpower or motivation. It's about systems and habits. It's about creating an environment and a set of routines that make disciplined behavior the path of least resistance. And this is why trying to rely on motivation alone will always fail, because motivation is an emotion, and emotions are temporary. They come and go. They're influenced by sleep, diet, stress, weather, and 1,000 other factors. But systems and habits are structural. They're built into the fabric of your daily life. They operate independently of how you feel, and they compound over time to create extraordinary results. So how do you actually build conscientiousness? First, you start with micro habits that are so small they're almost impossible to fail at, because the goal isn't to make massive changes overnight. It's to build the neural pathways of consistency, and every time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how small, you're literally strengthening the parts of your brain responsible for self-regulation and goal pursuit. And this is why someone who consistently makes their bed every morning for 6 months will often find it easier to stick to exercise routines, work schedules, and other important habits, not because bed making is inherently valuable, but because it's training the fundamental skill of doing what you say you're going to do regardless of how you feel. Second, you need to understand that conscientiousness is largely about time management and planning, and this doesn't mean you need to become a rigid, joyless person who schedules every minute of their day. It means you need to become intentional about how you spend your time and energy, and the research shows that people who spend just 5 minutes each morning planning their day are significantly more likely to achieve their goals than people who don't, and this isn't because the planning itself is magical. It's because the act of planning forces you to clarify your priorities, anticipate obstacles, and create a bridge between your intentions and your actions. Third, you need to develop what researchers call implementation intentions, which is a fancy way of saying you need to create if-then scenarios for your goals. So instead of saying, "I will exercise," you say, "If it's 6 a.m. on a weekday, then I will go to the gym." And instead of saying, "I will eat healthier," you say, "If I'm grocery shopping, then I will buy vegetables and avoid the processed food aisles." And these implementation intentions are incredibly powerful because they remove the decision-making burden from your future self. They create automatic behavioral responses that don't require motivation or willpower, and they bridge the gap between good intentions and actual behavior. Fourth, you need to understand that conscientiousness is heavily influenced by your environment, and this means you need to engineer your surroundings to support the behaviors you want to maintain. So if you want to read more, you put books in visible places and remove distractions like TV and social media. If you want to exercise regularly, you prepare your workout clothes the night before and remove barriers to getting started. If you want to eat healthier, you stock your kitchen with nutritious foods and remove tempting junk food. And this isn't about having perfect self-control, it's about making good choices easier and bad choices harder. And the research consistently shows that environmental changes are far more effective than relying on willpower alone. Fifth, you need to develop what psychologists call delay of gratification tolerance. And this is the ability to resist immediate rewards in service of larger, long-term goals, and the good news is that this capacity can be strengthened through practice, just like a muscle, and every time you choose the harder, but more beneficial option, whether it's getting up early instead of hitting snooze, choosing the healthy meal instead of the convenient one, or working on your important project instead of scrolling social media, you're building the neural pathways that make future acts of self-discipline easier and more automatic. The beautiful thing about conscientiousness is that it creates a positive feedback loop in your life, because when you consistently follow through on your commitments, you start to trust yourself more, and when you trust yourself more, you're willing to set bigger goals, and when you achieve those bigger goals, you gain confidence in your ability to create the life you want, and this confidence makes you more willing to delay gratification and make short-term sacrifices for long-term benefits, and the cycle continues to build on itself until disciplined behavior becomes not just a habit, but a core part of your identity. Now let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly, because I want you to see how this plays out in real life. Imagine two women, both in their late 20s, both deciding to start their own businesses, and the first woman, let's call her Sarah, is incredibly intelligent, charismatic, and creative. She has brilliant ideas, she's great at networking, she can inspire people with her vision, and everyone who meets her thinks she's destined for success. But Sarah has a problem. She's inconsistent. She gets excited about new ideas but loses interest when the work becomes routine. She procrastinates on important tasks. She doesn't follow through on commitments, and she's easily discouraged by setbacks. And while her intelligence opens doors, her lack of conscientiousness means she struggles to walk through them consistently. The second woman, let's call her Maria, is average in terms of intelligence and charisma. She's not the most creative person in the room. She's not the best networker. She doesn't have the most revolutionary ideas, But Maria has one crucial advantage. She's incredibly conscientious. She creates systems and sticks to them. She shows up every day, even when she doesn't feel like it. She follows through on every commitment. She plans her work and works her plan. And she views setbacks as information rather than reasons to quit. And while her natural abilities might be average, her consistency compounds over time to create extraordinary results. Fast forward 1 year, and here's what happened. Sarah's business failed, not because she lacked talent or intelligence, but because she couldn't maintain the consistent daily actions that business success requires. She would have amazing weeks followed by weeks of barely doing anything. She would start projects but not finish them. She would make commitments to clients but not follow through. And eventually, her inconsistency caught up with her, and she found herself back at a corporate job, wondering why her obvious talents didn't translate into success, while Maria's business flourished, not because she was more naturally gifted, but because she understood that success is built through consistent, daily actions over time, and she had developed the conscientiousness to maintain those actions regardless of how she felt. And this is the power of conscientiousness. It turns average talent into extraordinary results through the magic of consistency and compound growth. This pattern plays out everywhere you look in sports. The most successful athletes aren't always the most naturally talented. They're the ones who show up for training every day, who follow their nutrition plans, who get adequate sleep, who do the boring, repetitive work that improvement requires. And they do this for years and decades, not because they're more motivated, but because they've developed the systems and habits that make consistent behavior automatic. And in business, the most successful entrepreneurs aren't necessarily the most creative or intelligent. They're the ones who consistently execute on their plans, who follow through on their commitments, who adapt and persist when things get difficult, and who maintain their focus on long-term goals even when short-term results are disappointing. The research on this is absolutely fascinating because it shows that conscientiousness actually changes your brain structure over time. And people who consistently practice disciplined behavior develop stronger connections in the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for executive function, planning, and impulse control, and they also develop better emotional regulation through strengthened connections between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, which is the brain's fear center. And this means that conscientiousness isn't just about behavior, it's about literally rewiring your brain to support success, and the more you practice it, the easier it becomes, until eventually, disciplined behavior feels more natural and comfortable than undisciplined behavior. But here's what I really want you to understand. Conscientiousness isn't about becoming a robot or losing your spontaneity or creativity. It's about becoming free, because when you develop the ability to consistently do what you say you're going to do, you gain the freedom to pursue your biggest dreams and goals, because you know you have the internal capacity to make them happen. And when you're not constantly struggling with self-discipline and follow through, you have more mental energy available for creativity, innovation, and enjoyment. And when you trust yourself to maintain good habits, you can take bigger risks and pursue more ambitious goals, because you know you won't sabotage yourself through inconsistency or lack of follow-through. The truth is that most people live their entire lives wanting things they never achieve, not because they lack ability or opportunity, but because they lack the conscientiousness to consistently bridge the gap between their intentions and their actions. And this is incredibly sad, because it means that millions of people are living far below their potential, not because they're not smart enough or talented enough, but because they haven't developed the fundamental life skill of self-regulation and consistent action. And the tragedy is that this skill is completely learnable. It's not a fixed trait. It's not something you're born with or without. It's something you can develop through deliberate practice and environmental design. And once you develop it, It will transform every area of your life in ways you can't even imagine right now. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pick one small habit, something so easy that you can do it even on your worst days. And I want you to commit to doing it every single day for the next 30 days, not because the habit itself is going to change your life, but because the practice of consistency will begin to rewire your brain and strengthen your capacity for conscientiousness. And it could be something as simple as making your bed, doing 5 push-ups, reading 1 page of a book, writing 1 sentence in a journal, or drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning. The specific habit doesn't matter as much as the consistency, because what you're really doing is training your brain to follow through on commitments regardless of how you feel. And this is the foundation of all achievement, all success, all meaningful accomplishment in life. And as you practice this small habit, pay attention to how it feels when you follow through versus when you don't. Notice how following through creates a sense of integrity and self-trust. Notice how it gives you momentum and confidence. Notice how it makes you feel more capable of handling other challenges in your life. And also notice how breaking the commitment, even with a small habit, creates a subtle sense of self-betrayal and makes you feel less capable and confident, because this awareness will help you understand viscerally why conscientiousness is so powerful and why it's worth developing. And once you've successfully maintained your small habit for 30 days, you can gradually add more habits and bigger commitments, but always with the understanding that consistency is more important than intensity, and small actions maintained over time will always outperform sporadic bursts of massive effort. The science is clear, the research is overwhelming, and the implications are profound. Conscientiousness is the single most important personality trait for achieving success in life. It's more predictive than intelligence, more valuable than talent, more powerful than charisma, and the beautiful thing is that it's completely within your control to develop, and every single day, you have the opportunity to strengthen this trait through the choices you make, the habits you maintain, and the commitments you honor. And as you do this, you'll find that success becomes not just possible but inevitable, because you'll have developed the fundamental capacity to consistently bridge the gap between your dreams and your reality. And that's the real secret to achievement, not having perfect conditions or extraordinary talent, but having the conscientiousness to show up and do the work day after day until your goals become your lived reality. This is your moment to decide: will you continue to live at the mercy of your moods and impulses, or will you develop the conscientiousness to take control of your destiny and create the life you actually want? The choice is yours, the science is clear, and the time is now. So right now, in the comments below, I want you to write down one specific habit you're committing to do every single day for the next 30 days. Make it small, make it achievable, but make it non-negotiable. And I want you to check back in with this video every single day for the next week to report your progress, because accountability is what transforms intention into reality. And if you're serious about changing your life, if you're tired of being inconsistent, if you're ready to develop the one trait that will predict your success more than any other factor, then prove it to yourself and to this community by making that commitment right now. And don't you dare scroll past this video without taking action, because knowledge without implementation is just entertainment. And you didn't come here to be entertained, you came here to transform your life. So drop that habit in the comments, hit that like button if this message resonated with you. Subscribe to Mental Byte, because we're building a community of people who are committed to excellence. And share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, because the person who needs to develop conscientiousness the most is probably the person who thinks they don't need it. And remember, 30 days from now, you can either be the same person you are today, or you can be someone who has proven to themselves that they can follow through on their commitments. And that proof, That evidence of your own reliability will become the foundation for every success you achieve for the rest of your life. So what's it going to be?